uh, this mouse, camera, OBS, mic. All right, looks like everything is A-O-80. Now it looks like I'm going back to just reading about this entire article from front to back. So, let me think of anything else. Well, first thing first, hydrate. Okay. Starting to. Okay, everything is going good so far. Audible or automobile. Audible dog. Never mind. Automobile dependency or car dependency. Automobile dependency or car dependency is the concept that some city layouts cause automobiles to be favored over alternate forms of transportation, such as bicycles, public transit, and walking. All the contents are here. From 6 to 9 are just resources. See also notes and references, bibliography, and external links. Besides that, number 1 is overview, 2 negative externalities, externalits. Number 2, negative externalness of automobile. 3, addressing the issue. 4, urban sprawl and smart growth. And 5, the paradox of intensification. Well, let's go to overview. In many modern cities, automobiles are convenient and sometimes necessary to move easily. When it comes to automobile use, there is a spiraling effect where traffic congestion produces the quote demand end quote for more and bigger roads and removal of impediments to traffic flow. For instance, pedestrians signalize crossings, traffic lights, cyclists, and various forms of street-based public transit, such as trams. These measures make automobile use more pleasurable and adventurous. No, advantageous. Advantage is pleasurable and advantageous at the expense of other modes of transport. Yeah, this is an odd word for me to say. Yeah. Sounds very close to adventurous. Yeah, some people like to drive for the adventure, but it is advantage is. Anyway, so greater traffic volumes are induced. Additionally, the urban design of cities adjusts to the needs of automobiles in terms of movement and space. Buildings are replaced by parking lots. Open-air shopping streets are replaced by enclosed shopping malls. Walk-in banks and fast food stores are replaced by drive-in versions of themselves that are inconventionally located for pedestrians. Town centers with a mixture of commercial, retail, entertainment functions are replaced by single-function business parks. Category killer retail boxes and multiplex entertainment complexes, each surrounded by large tracts of parking. These kinds of environments require automobiles to access them, thus inducing even more traffic onto the increased road space. This results in congestion. The cycle above continues. This is all referring to this graph before. Oh no, this refers to the graph pretty much. Let me finish this, and then I could display the graph. Yeah, we already talked about multiplex and category killer. Yeah, okay, this results in conjunction, and the cycle above continues. Roads get even bigger, consuming ever greater tracts of land previously used for housing, manufacturing, other socially and economically useful purposes. Public transit becomes less and less viable and socially stigmatized, eventually becoming a minority form of transportation. People's choices and freedoms to live functional lives without the use of the car are greatly reduced, such cities are automobile dependent. Automobile dependency is seen primarily as an issue of environmental sustainability due to the consumption of non-renewable resources and their production of greenhouse gases responsible for global warming. It is also an issue of social and cultural sustainability, like gated communities. The private automobile produces physical separation between people and reduces the opportunity for unstructured social encounters that are significant aspects of social capital formations and maintenance in urban environments. Urban environments. Let's see if yeah. Wow. Well done. This is where I left off. Well, anywho, let's go through here. This is the graph that was referred to. So let's start from the blue one, because when it comes to the graph, there's really no starting position. You can start anywhere. Gets a bit confusing, but you could understand the gist of it. But it still seems a bit of a hard work from just an area to start with. So let's go with induced travel demand, increased congestion to infrastructure. It has this cycle, which increase a car traffic, both this cycle and this inward cycle, which moves in here to the arrows. Increase of emissions to degradation of cities to automobile oriented, to increase of distances, to increase of vehicle ownership, to automobile oriented transport planning, to marginalization of alternate modes, which increase of car traffic. All because this limits this is positive for one thing, which is cars. So yeah, a lot more is related here. Now, anyway, let's move on to negative externalities of automobile. Let me just freaking get the pronunciation. Give on liddies. No. Okay, let's go to Cambridge. Let's learn the English way to say it, and then the American way to say it.
Externality.
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 Externalities. Ah. Yeah, I never used that word before. Negative externalities of automobile. According to the Handbook of Estimation of External Costs in the Transport Sector, externalities, external, made by the Delft University, and which is the main reference in European Union for assessing the externalities of cars. The main external costs of driving a car are... Alrighty, let me go. Let me get some water. Actually, okay, so if I'm pointing the graph here, let me do this. Let me point this, so this connects to the graph way over there. It's pretty much in this side here. But anyway, meantime, look at the graph here, and let me hydrate and wet my lips. So, the main external costs of driving a car are congestion and scarcity costs, collision costs, air pollution costs, noise pollution costs, climate change costs, costs for nature and landscape, costs for water pollution, costs for soil pollution, and cost of energy dependency. Now, on to addressing the issue, which, main article is alternatives to the automobile, along with see also congestion pricing. There are a number of planning and design approaches to readdressing automobile dependency, known variously as new urbanism, new urbanism, transit-oriented development, smart growth. Most of these approaches focus on the physical urban design, urban density, and land use zoning of cities. Dr. Paul Mees, a transport planning academic formerly at the University of Melbourne, argues that investment in good public transit, centralized management by the public sector, and appropriate policy priorities are more significant than issues of urban form and density. There are, of course, many who argue against a number of details within any of the complex arguments related to this topic, particularly relationships. Let me slow that down. Particularly relationships between urban density and transit viability, or the nature of viable alternatives to automobiles that provide the same degree of flexibility and speed. There's also research into the future of automobility itself in the terms of shared usage, size reduction, road space management, and more sustainable fuel sources. Car sharing is one example of a solution to automobile dependency. Research has shown that in the United States, services like Zipcar have reduced demand by about 500,000 cars. In the developing world, companies like EHI, Carrot, Zazcar, and Zoom has replicated or modified Zipcar's business model to improve urban transportation to provide broader evidence with greater access to the benefit of a car and provide last mile connectivity between public and transportation and individual's destination. Car sharing also reduces private vehicle ownership. So Zoom. Okay. Zoom Car is an Indian self-driving car retail company. Okay. Yeah, it just says Zoom here. It just says Zoom Car. Interesting. Urban sprawl and smart growth. A diagram shows an inverse correlation between urban density and car use for selected North American cities. Yeah. Automobile efficiency. Yeah, I left this to read it. Might as well have this page right here. So, whether smart growth does or can reduce problems of automobile dependency associated with urban sprawl has been fiercely contested for several decades. The influential study in 1989 by Peter Newman and Jeff Kenworthy compared 32 cities across North America, Australia, Europe, and Asia. So let me actually try to do this. So I'm going to see myself on camera. So, North America, Australia, Europe, Asia. Okay, let me try to do this another way. North America, Australia, Europe, and Asia. Yeah, this way actually looks like I'm actually pointing at the map. I gotta do it backwards though. Well, I have to do it in a backwards way compared to me pointing it, imagining the map like this versus right here. So it looks like it's just flipped. So the study has been criticized. This is supposed to be criticized for its methodology. One of the main finding that denser cities, particularly in Asia, have lower car use than sprawling cities, particularly in North America, has been largely accepted, but The relationship is clearly as the extremes cross continents than it is within countries where conditions are more similar. Within cities, studies from across many countries, mainly in the developed world, have shown that denser urban areas with greater mixture and land use and better public transport tend to have lower car use than less dense, suburban and ex-urban and ex-urban residential areas. This usually holds true even after controlling those socioeconomic factors such as differences in household composition and income. This does not necessarily imply that suburban, 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 suburban. Yeah, it's the I'm having a hard time saying today. Alrighty. So this does not necessarily imply that suburban sprawl causes high car use. However, one confound, confounding, confounding factor which has been subject to many studies is residential self-selection. People who prefer to drive tend to move towards low-density suburbs, whereas people who prefer to walk, cycle, or use transit tends to move towards higher-density urban areas better served by public transport. Some studies have found that with self-selection is controlled for, the built environment has no significant effects on travel behavior. More recent studies using more sophisticated methodologies have generally rejected these findings. Densities, land use, and public transport accessibility can influence travel behavior, although social and economic factors, particularly in household income, usually exert a stronger influence. Well, okay. Now this seems a little bit tricky. The paradox in intensification. Reviewing the evidence of urban intensification, smart growth, and their side effects on automobile use. Meli et al. 2011. Yeah, 2011. Actually, no, that's not quote. Urban. Hey, it looks like that could be DC. That metro. Urban intensification. Found support for argument by both supporters and opponents of smart growth. Planning policies that increase population densities in urban areas do tend to reduce car use, but the effect is a weak one. So doubling the population density of a particular area will not halve the frequency or distance of car use. These findings led them to propose the paradox of intensification. All other things being equal, urban intensification, which increases population density, will reduce per capita car use with benefits to the global environment, but will also increase concentrations of motor traffic, worsening the local environment in those locations where it occurs. At a city-wide level, it may be possible through a range of positive measures to counteract the increase in traffic and congestion that would otherwise result from increasing population densities. Freiburg im Breslau. Yeah, it's the best I can do. In Germany is one example of a city that has been more successful in reducing automobile dependency on constraining dependency and constraining increases in traffic despite substantial increases in population density. This study also reviews evidence on local effects of building at higher densities. At the level of the neighborhood of individual development, positive measures like improvement to public transport will usually be insufficient to counteract the traffic effect of increased population density. This leaves policymakers with four choices. Okay. Intensify and accept local consequences. Sprawl and accept wider consequences. A compromise with some element of both. Or intensify accompanied by more direct measures such as parking restrictions, closing roads to traffic, and car-free zones. So, a compromise. Okay, a compromise with some element of both, which is intensify and accept local consequences and wider consequences. Now you also have the resources with automobility, car costs, car movement, effects of the car on societies, peak cars, sustainable transport, urban sprawl, urban planning, cycling infrastructure. Along with this, so yay. There's a lot of see alsos with hyperlinks. Automobile city, yeah. Our cities facilitate and encourage the movement of people via private transportation through physical planning, e.g., built environment innovations and soft programming. Joven's paradox. In economics, Joven's paradox occurs when technological progress or government policy increases the efficiency with which a resource is used, but the rate of consumption of that resource rises due to increasing demand. Yep. It's a bit complicated. That's the thing with paradoxes. So, sustainable transport refers to the broad subject of sustainable in the senses of social, environment, and climate impacts. So, effects of the car on societies. I want to go. So, I want to read next time the effects of the car on societies. This will be the next thing I will go to. Would like to go to also sustainable transport, but I figured since we're talking about automobile dependency, it feels very fitting, especially since I could always go back to what I previously read about active mobility for sustainable transport and that. But anyway, I feel it must be best just to learn more of how automobiles are dependent with people, like when it comes to what is its impacts, the series of factors that's related to it, or just automobiles themselves. Like I believe also peak cars related to cars themselves. So let's see. Peak car is a hypothesis that motor vehicle distance travel per capita per anomaly by the private car has peaked and will now fall in a sustained manner. Still confused, but yeah, that's why I read. Well, anyhow, as promised, let's go to this one. So this is negative externalities of automobile. So all these are just costs. So let's see what the image looks like. And this is like more of a pie chart. This one's like a bar chart. But it's supposed to represent an oil drop, and this one's supposed to be a time drop. So let's see. Driving, productive use, looking for parking, sitting congestion, and parking. Yeah, those are big things that take up a bunch of time when it comes to freaking the use of it. And then you have the productive use. So fuel never reaches the wheels, which is engine loss, thermal combustion, pumping, friction, and idling. So this graph just shows this along with it. So yeah, this does show that the big thing with automobiles is that it just takes up so much resources without seeing productive results. So this doesn't seem very, very necessary. that's the troubling thing. Now, let me go. I'm choking on my water. Not good. Where were we? The other graph. So a diagram shows an inverse correlation between urban density, yeah, and car use for selected North American cities, yeah. So let's see. Filters auto activated. Weird. Oh yeah, it's just because it's in a. So yeah, this bar graph just shows. Okay, that's good. Density, number of people per. That's good. Let me see if I can rotate this. Sorry, I can't. Oh well. So yeah, this shows the. At least Montreal's doing good. Houston, no, but that's pretty much the case with Texas. Ugh. And they also have Los Angeles. Spain, it's a separate thing here. Interesting that New York is right here. But, that shows case. I also explained this before, but yeah, anyway, what is it? In the West Coast compared to the East Coast, there are a lot more people who are car dependent because when it came to the infrastructure for transportation over there, it mainly focused on trains and then to automobiles, especially when it gets to the highway system. Earlier on the East Coast, like what was it? The first transportation system was actually by horseback. So you have like a bunch of old historical roads and such. So yeah. But that's not much excuse because you pretty much have other countries like Canada, for example, um, able to still not be that car dependent, and that's the thing about it. You can actually create accessibility. So yeah. So any other graphs? No. So let me actually reread this so I could get a more of an idea of it. Bring sprawl and smart growth. Yeah. So I'm just skimming through this. Yeah, it actually talks about creating spaces, looking at even the suburban sprawl and how to tackle with it, but also factoring in so many factors of people, making people in different areas, even when it comes to communities, so not just individuals, to do this, to actually have an environment where they don't have to be car dependent, not the car itself or transport. So yeah, so that's a new thing that's happening. But actually, I do like a good example with smart growth is NYC. So New York City is having a fee for cars to be inside the city in order to limit the amount of pollution they have in the city, along with traffic. So that's something they're looking at. Now, the next one would be just the paradox and intensification. Let me look at this. Okay. Okay, so I might read this. All other things being equal, urban intensification, which increases population density, will reduce per capita car use with benefits to a global environment, but will also increase consumption of motor traffic, worsening the local environment in these locations where it occurs. This mainly goes against both supporters and opponents of smart growth. So this related to smart growth and stuff like that, where it will not have totally positive results but negative. So the complexity of that. Well, anywho, I'm pretty much goodio. Next time, I'll talk about effects of the car on societies. Besides that, so long.